It was like a magic shield. If you went in and if you went in that room, you might as well just pulled your pants down and bent over because you was about to get beat.
I got that room in my house now. The room with the blue sofa. Don't go in there. That sofa light blue.
Yeah, but then again, if you really think about it, that was probably there was a reason was because we were stank little kids, hot, running around, and they know how to sit still. Because we didn't know what ADHD was or ADD because it hadn't been discovered yet. You know what I mean?
And mommy would say, okay, so when my oldest, I told her that I had got him tested. Tested. I said, they tested him for ADHD. I said, but he only has ADD. Come on, that boy. We don't go to psychologists. We don't do that. We don't do that. We don't. We just suck it up and they just want to act up in school. That's all it is. That's all. And I'm like, no. And they on your sister. They're talking about Beanie. I was like, no, there was something wrong with me too. No. And you said ain't nothing wrong with y'all. You don't need to take me to no doctor for that. But she took us to the doctor for everything else. We were hypochondriacs because we was in the hospital all the time. But then we later found out why we was always going to the doctor because they would give her some a voucher, money voucher. You should get $75, $25 for each child that she brought to the emergency room. And she took us there at a certain time because you got the voucher because you couldn't catch the bus because the bus stopped running. So we knew why. But anyway, just felt I had to say that.
I remember that too. I remember that.
See, our parents back then didn't believe it. Well, a lot of them couldn't afford psychologists, but when the school, remember, I don't know if they do that now, but do they do that now where they test your child? Or when they first start to come, they test you to see where your level is and if you have any type of, only if you ask now?
The ask of the teacher or somebody recommends it.
Oh, okay, because they tested everybody. I know all of us possibly got tested, and they determined whether or not what level, or if we needed extra help, or if we actually had some type of disability.
Yeah, it's called an IEP.
Yes.
Let's call it now. Did they call it then too?
They didn't have it then.
They
Well,
didn't have it then.
they called it a 504 previous to
Right.
IEP. They called it was a it was a,
title. It used to be Title I and Title II.
yeah, and it was similar to that, but it was less comprehensive than an IEP
Right.
is these days because we didn't really have OT, PT.
Right.
We didn't have a lot of that stuff because that stuff was still being developed in the 70s and 80s. And we treated all people that were neurodivergent as behavioral problems. And they got tracked in special ed, especially if you was
Yeah.
Black and you were disrupted.
Right.
They didn't know anything about neurodivergence. So it was something that it took a lot of years of study to understand, how to treat a lot of those things that need an IEP. Because some kids get IEPs when they're young and then they grow out of them. Like my oldest, he had an IEP for a learning disability because he sometimes can't, it's not dyslexia, they said. It's more like he puts words in the wrong place. So
Right.
he had assistance until he got to high school. And then when he got to high school, he didn't have the issues with that. And of course he graduated from George Mason with his bachelor's and trying to go back to get his master's. So I'm happy about that.
What if it was called resource classes that you were separated out of those classes?
Title I.
That's the Title one. Yeah, because I know I had to go.
Resource.
Oh, that's what. Because I know when I was in elementary and middle school, or back then as junior high, they would, and when it was time to test, they would remove you out of those classes with the other kids, so you have extra time because I know I read at a slower level, a slower pace. I understood, I just read slower. So they considered me in resource and I got extra time to take my test. So but that was like the furthest our parents would allow us to um go to find out about any disabilities. But she didn't believe in that. She didn't believe in it. And she was upset with me when I told her that I got him tested. And it actually helped out with him because he was able to understand and get a help, redirect his mind and how he structured his life. He graduated out of college, finished out of military, and now he's architect for uh what is it? Construction company, I think it is. But anyway, it's just the fact that, there's things that our parents didn't believe in. And if we would have stayed with those beliefs, we wouldn't be able to get our children the help that they need today and know a little bit more. Like you said, that your son had it while he was in, earlier schools until they got to high school, he had assistance. Back then they didn't believe in a lot of that stuff.
No,
They didn't
they
believe in a lot
they
of that
didn't
stuff.
they didn't believe in it because they didn't understand it. And
Right.
if you don't have it, if you don't have it, then if you don't know if you don't know it, then what happens is you get there and it's like you you just don't know where things are going to happen. So you don't, if you don't read up on it and you don't believe it. If you don't believe it, you're not going to take it seriously.
Remember, back then we didn't have the internet. We had the sources.
Yeah, and the encyclopedia and the Black Encyclopedia Britannica.
And encyclopedias that people went door to door selling. Till this day, my Aunt Lou still has her Encyclopedia Britannica, I think that's what it's called. And it's above her kitchen on the shelf on the wall, all across the wall. She still has that to this day.
Yep, and she's 91.
So you can imagine how old those things are. But that's what they had back then, and then what we have today, that they didn't know anything about that stuff. They just felt that people was trying to label our children and put our children backwards instead of going forward.
Yes, yes. There was a racial tinge to that, and that's kind of, and in the 80s and 90s, that's where they started the school to prison pipeline, where if a black child did not toe the line, they were listed as troublesome, put in special ed, and then special ed, they got suspended more, and suspended more, you go to jail, and you keep the prisons
Right.
full that way. So, everybody, oh, Miss Nikki said that her parents still has all those books also. But we have passed our time, and this was, with the exception of that little halftime show, we have reached the end of another wonderful episode of DFG's Corner with myself, DFG, Chocolate Pearl, my favorite girl, the lady sweet as Snapple, Miss Apple, our usual family members, Big Al, Miss Kim, Miss Summer, Miss Dream, Miss Nikki on Yahoo. I mean, on YouTube. We also usually on Facebook Live, Instagram Live, and TikTok Live. So every Tuesday evening, I ask that you look. We also have bits and pieces on the show that I post on TikTok as well as YouTube. And I want y'all to say that, when you come on our call, you're not a contestant, you're a family, and we're going to treat you as such, both good and bad. So before we go, Chocolate Pearl, you got anything to say to our audience before we go?
I just enjoyed this conversation. I'm going back in the day and kind of comparing it to today's um, atmosphere. I'm gonna say it like that. I also want to say hey to Sheba. How are you doing, sweetie? I hope Apple is enjoying her time in my second hometown. in Columbia, South Carolina. And thank everybody for joining us as usual. See you next week, same time, same channel, same back time.
And Apple.
I'm just gonna say, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining once again. It was a great conversation. And I hope to see everybody again next week.
All right, people. I got a different one. I usually say don't make love by the garden gate, though love is blind and neighbors ain't. But I got a new mantra. If you can't laugh at yourself, find somebody else to laugh at. Y'all be good. This is DFG saying see you next week. On the behalf of myself, DFG, Chocolate Pearl, Apple, and Bean, we want to thank you for watching our show. Please come back, like, share, and subscribe. Peace.